Good morning, afternoon, and evening all. This is Yorkie with episode 10 of my in-depth track guide series, and this week we are taking a look at the Hungaroring from Budapest in Hungary. This is race 10 out of the 19 tracks on the F1 2013 calendar, so we just passed the halfway point. Hopefully you guys recognise the usual video format by now, and we're going to start off with the breakdown. Okay, so we gain control of the car just before the second to last corner, and it doesn't really matter how you take the second to last corner, because it's the final corner that we were worried about. So coming through here, we're just trying to keep it nice and smooth, and then coming into the final corner now. So you want to take a wider entry, you want to try and get on the power as soon as possible, try and straighten up that wheel, obviously get the curves draining as soon as possible, and obviously open up the DRS at the detection line. So coming down towards turn 1 now, we're going to keep to the left hand side of the track, and we're looking for our braking point at the 100-meter board, where we're going to be shifting from 7th gear down into 1st gear. You're going to be shifting down the gears relatively rapidly to try and help get the car slowed down, as you try and need to get all your braking done before turning into the corner. So coming into the braking zone now, we're going to shift down through the gears and hang to the left hand side of the track. As we pass the end of the pit exit line, we're going to start turning in, and we're looking to hook up the apex on the inside curb just here. Your apex speed should be about 60 miles per hour, which equates to 95 kilometers per hour, and it's actually a relatively late apex, which will help try and get the wheel straightened up and try and get on the power as soon as possible passing through this point. So doing exactly that, coming out through the exit now, we're going to unwind the wheel, we're going to bring the power in very slowly, get up into second. Once you're up into second and nearly into third, that's when you should be full throttle. Open up the DRS at the activation point on the exit and drain about 20-30% of your cars. Turn 2 now, we're on the right hand side of the track, and we're looking for our braking point from this 50-meter board just here. We're going to be shifting down from 6th gear down into 2nd, and we're actually going to trail brake ever so slightly coming into the turning point of this corner as well. So hanging to the right hand side of the track, we're going to throw the car in, we're still braking ever so slightly, trying to get that car slowed down. Now we're off the brakes and actually balancing the throttle. Your apex should be as close to the inside curb just here on the inside, with an apex speed of about 80 miles per hour, which equates to 130 kilometers per hour. From this point onwards, you should be balancing the throttle, slowly bringing it back in as we come out through the exit, letting the car drift out wide towards the right hand side of the track. Obviously you don't want to go too far as the right hander follows, so you kind of want to try and compensate for that. Hang to the middle of the track if you can, and try and just keep a nice flowing arc through turn 3. Run the curb on the exit and then drain your curves down to about 55% remaining. So coming at the end of split 1, we're now coming into the second sector, and we're into this very fast left-hander. It's pretty much completely blind. So as soon as you see the curbing on the inside of the corner, and also just about to pass that orange barrier on the left-hand side of the track there, you're just basically going to brake and shift down 2 gears and throw the car in. So doing exactly that, just chucking the car in now. You want to try and not cut the corner on the inside instead. Try and keep at least 2 wheels within those white lines. I've hooked it up very nicely here and just gone and run across the red and white curbing on the inside, which is what you should be aiming for. Your apex speed should be about 145 miles per hour, which equates to 235 kilometers per hour. You want to balance the throttle as you come out through the corners. It's very easy to run wide, and that's exactly what I've done ever so slightly there. So run the curb, but try not to go too far over the curb on the exit. You want to get the car to the left hand side as quickly as possible, ready for turn 5, and this is our braking point here, just before the concrete on the right hand side of the track there ends. You're basically just going to be trail braking into the turning point of this corner. You're going to be shifting from 5th gear down into 3rd. So coming into the corner now, trail braking ever so slightly. We want to hook up a relatively late apex on the curbing on the inside here. We've actually passed the curbing and are now kind of in the gutter drain ditch on the inside there. Your apex speed should be about 100 miles per hour, which equates to 160 kilometers per hour. And at this point, you should be back on the throttle, balancing it probably around 20-30%. And as you continue out through the corner, you're going to let the car drift out wide from this point onwards and bring the throttle in even more. So doing exactly that, run the curb on the exit there. You want to keep to the left-hand side of the track as we look for the braking point for this rather tricky chicane. Our braking point is just before the 50-meter board, probably about 60 meters before the corner, just as we come over the very small crest, and we're going to be shifting from 5th gear down into 1st. So hanging to the left hand side of the track then, as we drop down the gears, we're going to come out and approach the corner, and we're going to throw the car in. You want to aim for the curb on the inside, but again, as per usual, you want to avoid the large curbing on the inside there, the sausage curb, as that will bounce the car and you'll lose valuable grip and turn in. So the apex should be at this point here as close to that inside curb as possible, about 70 miles per hour, which equates to 110 kilometers per hour. You're going to be balancing the throttle ever so slightly as we transition over to the left-hander now. And this one you can take a little bit more aggressively and maybe bounce over the curb ever so very slightly, but again try not to take too much and try and keep two wheels within the confines of the track at all times. So our apex speed for this point is 80 miles per hour, which equates to 130 kilometers per hour. And as we come out through the exit of this corner, as you can see, I've already shifted up into second gear, so we should be accelerating from this point. Trip it up into third, get it up into fourth, and then we have a very short braking zone just here. So basically just a light tap of the brake. And this section of corners requires a decent flow, so you want to try and get this hooked up straight from the off. We're going to be shifting from fourth gear down into third. We're going to chuck the car in, and we're basically just going to balance the throttle as we come through into the inside curbing. So hooking up this first apex quite nicely, then you're going to be running the curb on the inside here. Apex speed should be about 110 miles per hour, which equates to 175 kilometers per hour. And as you continue through the corner, just balance the throttle and try and keep towards the middle of the track. Don't run all the way to the right hand side of the track, as we need to get it back over to the left to open up turn 9 that follows. So doing exactly that, we're going to bring the car to the left and then transition it over to the right. It's just a very slight lift off the throttle, no need to tap the brake or anything there. And we're going to run the curb on the inside, and we're looking for the apex point just here, about 110 miles per hour, which equates to 175 kilometers per hour. You should continue balancing the throttle as we continue throughout the duration of this corner, and we're going to run out towards the exit curb there and just basically unwind the wheel, try and carry as much speed as possible, run the curb on the exit. Turn 10 that follows is completely flat out. Turn 11 is a very slight lift, and I actually downshifted there just to try and keep some of the speed. Basically just throw the car in, no need to brake. Your apex should be on the inside curb just here with an apex speed of about 145 miles per hour, which equates to 233 kilometers per hour. So coming out through the exit now, you should be relatively aggressive on the throttle. You should be about 80%, and obviously bring it more into full throttle. Run the curb on the exit, and then drain about 10% of your curves. So we're coming now into the final section of this track. We are looking for our braking point just here at the 100-meter board, and we're going to be shifting from 7th gear down into 2nd. You want to try and keep to the left-hand side of the track, and as we pass the 50-meter board in our braking zone, that's when we're going to start turning the car in towards the inside curb. So doing exactly that, we're going to throw the car in now. You want to try and get the curb on the inside just here quite nicely. We should be balancing the throttle as we come over through this apex point. Your apex speed should be about 80 miles per hour, which equates to 130 kilometers per hour. And as you come out through the exit, you're basically just going to unwind the wheel, bring the power back in, and drift over to the left-hand side of the track and run the curb on the exit. So doing exactly that, we're going to let the car drift over to the right-hand side of the track as we pass underneath the Pirelli board. Once we've gone past that, this is roughly our braking zone here as it starts to dip away into this little dip just before this second to last corner. So we're going to be shifting from 4th gear down into 1st, and we're going to be trail braking ever so slightly as well as we come into the turning point of this bend. And we're going to keep to the right hand side of the track, braking, shifting down the gears. We're going to turn the car in. There's no curb on the inside, so you kind of run over the drainage ditch and guttering on the inside there, and just kind of run the tarmac on the inside. Try and keep those two wheels within those white lines though on the track. You don't want to cut the corner too much. Your apex point should be just here, mid corner, about apex speed of about 70 miles per hour, which equates to 110 kilometers per hour. Be relatively cautious on the exit as it's quite easy to lose the rear end coming back over the drainage curb. So unwind the wheel, use the pit entry ever so slightly there to give yourself a little bit more room and extend the track ever so slightly, gaining you a little bit more speed coming out of the corner. Transition over to the left hand side of the track for the final corner. This is our braking point here, basically just trail braking into the corner, same way as we did for the start of the lap. You're shifting from 4th gear down into 2nd, and as we come into the corner, you basically want to try and carry as much speed as possible. You want to get on the accelerator relatively early. From this point is your apex point just here on the inside. You want to try and get as close to that inside point just there, but obviously try and not run the drainage ditch on the inside because that actually unsettle the car coming out the exit where you're carrying quite a bit of speed. And as you come out through the exit, your apex speed should be about 100 miles per hour, which equates to 160 kilometers per hour. And we're going to unwind the wheel, run the curb on the exit, drain the rest of the curves, open the DRS at the activation line, and obviously complete the lap of the Hungaroring. So we're now going to move on to the hot lap, which is exactly the same lap that I just showed you there, just in real time with the raw sound and without me talking over the top. Okay, so now that you've seen a dry lap, we're now going to move on to a wet lot of the Hungaroring and basically just talk about the breaking points and the apexes for these conditions. So same approach as to the final two corners. Obviously the second to last corner doesn't matter, the last corner is the one that we're worried about. So same approach as we can in the dry, just basically balance the throttle coming up through the exit. Don't get hard on the accelerators that step out the rear end, and obviously start draining the curves as soon as you feel you've got the traction down. We've got no DRS coming down this main straight, but we're going to keep to the left hand side of the track and we're going to be braking at the 100 meter board, ready for turn 1. Hook up that late apex quite nicely. Watch the acceleration on coming out of the corner, try not to spin those rear wheels. I'm actually going to drain about 30% of the curves, bringing the car over to the right hand side of the track. Braking at the 50 meter board for turn 2, hooking that up quite nicely, balancing the throttle throughout the duration of the corner and upon the exit. Turn 3 is completely flat out. We're going to drain the curves down to 50% now as we come up towards turn 4. Exactly the same approach, throw the car in, try and carry as much speed as possible. And again, coming into turn 6. We've actually gone and missed the apex there, but it's not too bad. And we're now coming into the difficult chicane, just thread the car between the two curbs. Hooking that up quite nicely. Again, just a slight lift off and dropping down the gear as we come into this section of corners now to try and carry as much speed as possible. We're going to use about 20% of our curves just there, leaving about 30% remaining as we come now into this final sector. And our braking point again at the 100 meter board, sorry, for this third to last corner, coming into the second to last corner now. Exactly the same braking point as it was in the dry, hooking up the corner quite nicely. Watch the acceleration on wheel spin coming out of that corner, then coming into the final corner. Try and grab an earlier apex if you can, try and carry that speed through, drain the curve, sorry, down to the start finish line and complete the lap of a wet Hungaroring. So we are now going to move on to the setups that I used for this track in both dry and wet conditions, and we're going to start off with the dry with the aerodynamics with a 3 on front and rear wing angles, 4753 and a high and standard pressure. For braking, for our balance we had a 9 and then a 4 on the rear. With our suspension, a 1 on ride height and then a 9 and a 2 on spring stiffness. And those were the gear ratios that I was using in miles per hour, and then of course the gear ratios in kilometers per hour as well. And then finally the toe and camber settings with the toe left as default, camber all the way to the left on the front, and then 3 to the left on the rear. So moving on to the wet setup now, we're using a 4-4 on wing angles. With our braking we're using a 4753 again, but a medium standard this time round. Balance was a 7 and a 2, and our suspension, was a 1 and then a 7 and a 1. And those were the gear ratios that I was using in miles per hour, and then of course the gear ratios again in kilometers per hour, and then finally the toe and camber settings, which were basically exactly the same as the dry setup. So that is going to conclude it for this in-depth track guide. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Please give it a rating. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below, and of course don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content in the future. I shall hopefully see you soon, guys. Take care.